This is a tutorial on the effects system and bus routing in the Ensoniq EPS-16 and also applies to the Ensoniq ASR10, although that machine has a few differences, like having more built-in effects available. I already have a drum kit loaded in as instrument 1. The particular instrument isn't too important to the concepts in this tutorial, so go ahead and load in your own favorite instrument. The first thing I want to show you is the difference between two similarly named buttons. There's one button that is called Effects, and there's another one called Effect. If you hit Effect, what that will come up with is the available effects. You can have it off. There's Instrument, which is the effect that gets loaded by default when you load an instrument. There's also the bank effect. Banks are global, meaning it will affect any instrument that's loaded. ROM, those are pre-loaded effects. They cannot be overwritten or changed. Those are permanently in memory. So there's various algorithms, reverbs, delays. This one happens to be a mix of chorus and reverb, phaser reverb, so on and so forth. The EPS-16 is limited. It tops out at 13 effects. The ASR10 has more, as I mentioned previously. This here is the reverb that loaded up when I loaded a drum kit. If you loaded a different patch, there is probably a different effect. You can turn off the effect and play back. Then you can select your instrument effect. You can tell that's obviously additional reverb. If we pick the bank effect, remember that would affect any instrument. That's a different reverb algorithm. And we can pick delays. So that's how you select what effect is active at the time. Now I'm going to show you what happens when you load two different instruments and how the EPS handles that instrument's effect. Right now, instrument number 2 is selected. If we go to the effect panel, we'll see instrument hall reverb. If we go and make instrument 1 active and go to the effect panel, instrument room reverb. What that means is if instrument 1 is active and we play it back, room reverb will be applied. If we pick instrument 2 and make that active and play that back, hall reverb is present. What happens if we go to the effect panel and change that to off? No effect. Go to instrument 1. Again, no effect. It's just dry. So that's global. If we do the effect again, change to delays. That's present on instrument 1 and also instrument 2. So everything is global. Off, ROM, bank, those will apply to every instrument. The exception being if instrument is selected. Notice one thing about this. There's a very important concept here that you must realize. The EPS-16 only has one effects processor, period. What that means is there can only be one effect active at a time. You can assign unique effects per instrument. That doesn't mean you can simultaneously have each instrument affected individually. To elaborate on that further, Some effects will let you assign different parts of their processing chain to a specific bus and also offer a wet-dry control to that bus, thereby giving you more flexible processing options. If you assign each instrument track to an individual bus, then you can potentially have 3 instruments with semi-independent processing and up to 5 others completely dry using the aux outputs. This is totally a workaround, and I'm going to explain why this is important. Now, there's another exception, and that is the third-party Waveboy discs. The Parallel FX disc in particular would allow for more routing options. That's obviously not something built into the EPS-16, but I'm also going to cover that for those of you that may have those discs and want to explore that potential. Now, I covered this effect button, and there's also the effects button. What that does is if you do edit effects, there's a preset menu. They call them variations, but if you're familiar with presets, that's the same idea. You can page up and pick different styles of already programmed effects. If you page right, you can change its parameters and customize the effect. So that's all that the variations are. Favorite reverb only differs from short reverb and the numbers that have already been entered into the various parameters. There's nothing inherently different about the variations. Now let's say we go in and change some of these parameters around and we want to save that for future use. You can do Command, Effects, and Save Bank Effect. You can name it as a particular file name. Hit enter and it will save it. Same thing if we want to load it. Load effect, page through your directory. This is the only one that happens to be saved there. Hit OK. It will load those parameters up. One thing that you should be aware of is that saving effects, you can only save the bank effect as a separate effect. Anytime you edit a ROM setting, that will change it to a bank effect. And also, if you select an instrument effect and edit the effect, you can change the parameters, but when you try to save it, Command Effects Save Bank, it's only going to save the effect and the bank effect. So if you change the parameters of the instrument effect and want to save that as a separate effect without saving the entire instrument, then you have to copy current effect to the bank effect, and then you can save it as a separate effect. You'll also notice if you go to Effect, have the bank effect selected, Edit Effects will show the settings and parameters for the bank effect. If you hit Effect, pick Instrument, and then Edit Effects, the parameters are based upon your instrument effect that's selected. Now, a question a lot of you would have is how buses work and also how to affect each instrument separately. The way to affect each instrument separately isn't straightforward. There is a bit of a workaround, and that will make sense once I explain how buses work. If you do Edit, Track, and page through, you'll see Out, Wave Sample. What that is for the selected instrument, each individual sample in that instrument has its own bus routing. If you do edit amp, you'll see the output bus can be changed to various options, and that is set per wave sample. Doing edit track, that sets the entire instrument to a particular bus. So right now, each wave sample could be assigned an individual bus. If we change that to bus 1, then all the wave samples, i.e. the entire instrument, will be routed to bus 1, or bus 2, 3, or auxiliary 1, depending on what we pick. So right now, instrument 1 is assigned to bus 1. If we do instrument 2, we can change that to bus 2, and instrument 3 will be bus 3. Now, the buses act differently dependent upon the particular effect that you have. Since there's no effect loaded right now, no matter what instrument I select, there's no effect. If I pick Hall Reverb, all the instruments are going through that reverb, but they're treated individually based upon their bus. What that means is when you edit the effect parameters, you can apply different amounts of reverb per bus. So if we wanted instrument 1 to be very coated in reverb, we turn bus 1 reverb up, bus 2 small amount of reverb, and bus 3 totally no reverb at all. And we do find that to be the case. Now, what's more handy is if we apply various amounts of reverb. So we have 3 independent reverb effects here, or relatively independent. And then if we have another 4th instrument, we can set that to auxiliary out. Now, provided we had cables hooked up to the auxiliary out, that will just be a totally dry signal. If we play back instrument 4, auxiliary out's not going to show on the headphones or the main outs, so you're not going to hear anything. That's going to be totally mute unless you have outputs physically hooked up from the auxiliary out on the back of the EPS. So what that gives us is a totally dry signal, and then we have bus 3, bus 2, and bus 1, all with different amounts of reverb. So you can, as a workaround, have 4 different styles of effects applied. Now, if you're ambitious and clever, there is another workaround I can show you that works the same way. If you go into the effects and go up to certain effects, like this one, distortion, chorus, reverb, do edit effects. And if you go up, they already have it set up as parallel effects as the second preset or variation. If you go into the parameters, you'll see distortion into chorus mix, chorus into reverb mix, and the general reverb mix for bus 3, which in this case we have tied to instrument 3. If you edit track and pick each instrument, you'll see the out bus will tell you how it's assigned. So bus 3 is strictly reverb, 4 goes to auxiliary, so that's totally dry and we won't hear it through our main outs. Instrument 2 is going into bus 2, which is the chorus, and instrument 1 is assigned to bus 1, which is the distortion input. So in this case, and it's a rare case, if we select instrument 1 and play that back, we can hear that's distorted. Pick instrument 2, the chorus. That will have a different effect. And bus 3 is reverb. And you can bleed those into each other with these parameters here. So this is a special case where it's a bit of a workaround, but you can't pick any of these effects at random and combine them. There can only be one effect algorithm loaded into the effects processor, period. Earlier I mentioned another special case involving the Waveboy discs, which not everyone has. If you do happen to have them or are interested in purchasing them, then they can expand your capabilities a little. And I'm going to quickly demonstrate it. What happens is if you load the effect from the disc, there's various ones you can do: chorus reverb and 2 distortions, 4 reverbs, so on and so forth. In this example, I'm going to pick 3 choruses and a reverb. If you load the effect from the Waveboy disc, do edit track, you'll see bus 1 is separated into A and B. What that will do is if you have your instrument panned left and right, it will treat the instruments on the left side in mono with 1 chorus, and on the right side with another separate chorus in mono. And then same thing with bus 2, mono bus C and the mono bus D. And that frees up bus 3 to be dry. So in a sense, you have 4 effects, the dry bus 3, and then the auxiliary outs are also dry. So if you have any outboard equipment, then you can process that separately. So the Waveboy Parallel FX will expand the internal capabilities by quite a bit. And also, if you edit the effects, the parameters are a lot cleaner as to how much control you have over each individual bus. So using some of the internal EPS effects, like distortion, chorus, and reverb, the effects are much more limited in the parameters that you can change. Using the Parallel FX Waveboy disc will give you much more control over each individual bus compared with the few effects that the EPS offers in ROM.